All right, so thank you everyone for coming. Just a few things before we get started. We do have 2 more webinars coming up. Next week, we will have Eileen Chant from the Department of Energy giving a talk. And then 2 weeks from today, we will be meeting in person at the Launch Lab for a talk with Jeannie King from NASA. And she's going to talk about their technology transfer program and how the university could kind of partner with that with some of the technologies that they have right now. But today I'm happy to say we have Andy Tennant. Andy is a 14-year veteran of the U.S. Army, where he served as an avian and intelligence officer and an enlisted infantryman. Since separation, he has worked in both private industry and the federal government with the FBI. As part of the intelligence community, Andy was on the front lines of the Army's aerial intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance enterprise, employing aircraft and sensors in contested environments with both manned and unmanned systems. As part of the National Security Innovation Network, Andy is helping to build a local community of innovators, entrepreneurs, and academic problem solvers in West Virginia and Southwest PA to help solve the DoD's most pressing problems. So with that, I'll let Andy tell you about NSIN. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat or break in while he's talking. Though you can also save them at the end.
Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate that introduction. First off, I need to put the caveat out there that I'm a little under the weather. That funk that's been passing around, I picked it up, thought it passed by. The kids ended up getting it, and this last week's been a little rough for me. So appreciate your patience with me. So thank you all for coming here. I appreciate this opportunity, Jessica. It's really quite an honor to be able to give this presentation to the crowd. So I represent the National Security Innovation Network. And I'll go through this slideshow. Like Jessica said, if you have questions, please feel free to stop me. I'm trying to make it relevant to the group that's here. So the National Security Innovation Network falls underneath the Department of Defense. We've just recently changed our position where we fall directly under the Defense Innovation Unit, which reports directly to the Office of the Secretary of Defense. And in effect, what this means is the programs that we offer have the authority that's dependent on the Secretary of Defense. That means that we can reach all entities within the Department of Defense. So as you see the programs that we're promoting through either the Defense Innovation Unit or the National Security Innovation Network, which you'll see on the bottom of the screen there, it's a legitimate source of information, and it's a way that we're trying to build networks of innovators that generate new solutions to national security problems. So as I said, this is our missions that anybody who's worked in and around the DoD historically knows it's difficult to get into it. Most that are on this call are probably familiar with SBIRs or different contracting opportunities. Different contracting opportunities that, you know, it's kind of elusive to get into it. How do you get in there? It's all about who you know, et cetera, et cetera. So when we figured out in 2015, 2016 timeframe, when DIU stood up, that people were having a difficult time getting in here, we developed this new way of doing business. NSIN stood up in 2019, and since then we've been developing methods for getting the problems that are within the Department of Defense put in front of problem solvers. Our network is a nationwide network, so each one of those stars is one of me. I represent the state of West Virginia, and I'm also tying into Southwest PA, but we are a nationwide network of people that have experience either career military or career in the entrepreneurial or academic spaces, and each of us are developing independent networks that collaborate together. We have a problems database that right now has about 700 unplaced problems. I'll give a couple of examples of those here in a few minutes. But we're trying to find different ways to solve those problems, and we solve those problems through our programming, some of which I'll go over here today. We have our problem sets broken up into 2 different portfolios. One is our talent portfolio, which focuses mainly on academia. The other one is our venture portfolio. So I'll spend most of my time talking, and this isn't going to be a very long presentation. I'll spend most of my time talking about the ones that are relevant to the academic community. Most outstandingly, you'll see here listed capstones. Capstones can be given to any student team that is looking at that can get college credit for the work that they're doing. That doesn't matter if it's undergraduate, graduate, or working toward a PhD. We can take one of the problem sets that we have and partner it with the capstone experience for those students where they're getting college credit. Those problems can be everything from human skills in systems learning to the high tech. So anything from AI and machine learning to pharmaceuticals to MIS problem sets. Our problem sets come from all over the place. I guess one thing I could talk about also is the way that we get our problems. So I'll go back to the map that I highlighted here. Our problem sets come from people like me connecting with both the academic, the military, and the venture communities within each of these regions. And we import the problems from the military community. So we'll reach out to those local military units and say, what problems do you have? We literally ask them that question. We take those problems, put them on our database, and then depending on where those problems best fit, we'll distribute them through those programs. So I didn't explain that very well last time. So we then take those problems and put them into any one of these programs. At Capstone, what will happen is that problem, the mission partner that gave us that problem, students will work directly with that problem solver or with the problem provider to come up with a solution. The solution might be turnkey. It may be developing some type of some type of actual handheld solution. Maybe it's an application. Maybe it's something that can be turned into a maker program, which I'll talk about briefly. We're doing that successfully in Marshall right now. So really the sky's the limit. I think the takeaway from this whole conversation is the DoD has problems and we want to put them in front of the right problem solvers. You in this community are the primary problem solvers. So I talked about Capstone. I'll talk about Azimuth too. Azimuth is a new program that we have going up. It's a semester-long course where we're teaching students innovation principles through the application of real-world problem. The way that we're planning to do that is by embedding that problem or that academic course in so that we have a multidisciplinary group of students that are solving this problem. The problems that are going to belong to the Azimuth program are a little bit larger in nature. The scope is very undefined. Something like, hey, how do we figure out what the appropriate uniform types need to be updated to fit men, women, etc. That's one example of a problem that we have right now. Another one is an open-ended solution. How do we increase our ability to do logistics in Southwest in the South Pacific? By taking that problem set and putting it in front of the students, not only are we teaching them things like design thinking, design learning, now we're able to give them a problem set that they're learning how to figure out how to solve problems better, but they can also develop a solution to a larger scale problem. The end state of the Azimuth program would be to potentially turn that into smaller capstone projects that have actual deliverables associated with them at the end of the course. Our Maker program is a program where it's something where we partner with makerspaces. I think we have over 200 that we are in partnership with around the country. One of those makerspaces is at Marshall University. We also work with the Lane Innovation Hub at West Virginia University as a problem solver. And that's when our mission partners come up to us and say, hey, I need a thing. Please make a thing for me. And we'll partner with those makerspaces and additive manufacturing to ensure that that thing can be made. At Marshall, again, James Westbrook's on here from that. We're looking at developing, I think, a mirror system for the Humvee, and that very well could go from like capstone to a maker project, very real time. The last thing I want to talk about specific to academia is X-Force Fellowship. So the X-Force Fellowship is a summer internship for students. We pay them and we partner them directly with a mission partner. Historically, it was, especially with COVID, that problem or the program was virtual. Now it's mostly in person, but the students will actually go and participate with a mission partner and solve one particular problem. A success story from that is that several years ago, students were charged with developing an application for the aircrew training program with the C-17 pilot population in one of the Air Force units. That solution they came up with is actually in the process of being integrated as a program of record. So when your students are participating in this X-Force Fellowship program, they're tentatively solving problems that can impact long-term effects on programs in the military. I will say that for this year, the application window closed at the end of January, so we have all the applications. I believe we had upwards of 500 to 600 applications. And this year, because of the budget constraints and everything that's going on within the National Defense Authorization Act and the things happening on the Hill right now, and we were only able to take 100, but last year I believe we had about 250. So it's an awesome opportunity, and the students that are able to participate in this, very, very good opportunity for them. This year, we do have applicants from both Marshall and WVU on the list. I don't know who's been selected yet, but it's just an exciting opportunity. So now I'm going to talk about the venture portfolio, and don't see this as academia is not not allowed to do this. It's just the way that we're codifying the programs that we have. For instance, we'll see challenges. Challenges are just open solicitation saying we have this problem, whatever that problem may be. Some of the recent problems we had was we partnered with the National Geospatial Agency, where we were trying to figure out a way to identify a way to predict illegal fishing off the coast. How do we do that? I don't really know. That's why we need you guys to help us out here. But it's an open challenge for anyone who has an opportunity or has a way to solve these problems. We also have one that's open. It's called the Net Zero Challenge through the Defense Innovation Unit. That one's currently open today. I think it closes here in the next week or so, but it's basically the DoD wants to modify and update buildings with net zero compliance. That one's a little bit different because it needs somebody, probably an engineering firm that has a lot of experience doing that type of stuff. But the challenges are so varied across the board. I cannot express this enough. The challenges are so open-ended that I never know what they're going to be and who's going to be the focus of them. I'll talk about more how I'm sharing those opportunities here shortly. So Emerge is an academic specific opportunity. And really what it is, it's a 12-week cohort where we're taking TLR 3 and 4 technology. And for anyone who doesn't know, TRL is technology readiness level. Anybody who has a 3 or 4 level technology that they're trying to commercialize within the academic space. So essentially, we take that technology, if a student or a faculty member has developed this technology, and we hold their hand through the commercialization process with the specific intent of commercializing directly with the Department of Defense. This cohort operates probably once every 6 months, something like that. We have one that's currently running right now. The other ones I want to talk about are Propel and Vector. Those are open opportunities for any venture pursuit. So basically the same thing that emerges, except we're holding their hands through the commercialization process. Okay, well, the last thing I'm going to talk about before I go on a little tangent here is our transition cell. So while on the front lines you have people like me that are trying to gem up the problems and then put them in front of the right problem solvers, we have our transition cell for somebody who has a viable technology already. Our transition cell will help technology that's already been developed at TRL 789, and they're going to actually help put you in front of the right resources that can connect you with potential contracting opportunities within the Department of Defense. They can help you figure out what the next process and the next step is for you. It's also going to add you to our database of participants in NSIN programs, and that'll provide more opportunities for you to get access to what's out there. Okay, with that, this is just the summary slide. I'm going to go ahead and close it off now. I'll put my contact information at the end here. But the last couple of things I want to talk about are, one, I've put out there the programs that we have. So I'm promoting those programs mostly through my LinkedIn profile. And that's how I'm getting those open solicitations out there. And I'm sharing those things as much as I possibly can. The other thing is I want to talk about some specific problem sets. So you all in the academic space, especially interested in capstone, people are like, okay, cool. And you just talked about all of these problems and which ones are relevant. So I just want to list off a couple that are currently unplaced right now that we're trying to find a home for, probably in the fall semester, for students to solve, at least in the capstone. So again, I'm going to briefly talk about these. So optimize patient care documentation for combat medics via software application. So that example, somebody is specifically looking for help solving that problem today. Improve potable water production while vessel is at port. Cost benefit analysis of fracture technology for demilitarization of munitions. Develop a software prototype of hybrid quantum classical and fully quantum neural networks. Optimize additive manufacturing-based layouts to improve production process in terms of cost and time. Create a document management concept white paper to connect CAD requirements, documents, and other technical resources. enhance Air Force data collection capabilities to improve human performance, leveraging industry partnership to compete with adversaries, and develop a human-machine learning policy, human-machine teaming policy and solutions. So those are just 5 or 6 of some of the high-level topics that we cover, and it's everything in between. With that, I will open up the door for questions. I know that was a brief, but I'm happy to answer anything that you guys have, and I'm posting all the relevant links in my chat.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
If I may ask something.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Is there any particular restrictions or constraints for students who wants to participate in one of these programs? I mean, I'm thinking about maybe citizenship or something like that.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. Can you try that again?
I wonder if there is any particular constraint or restriction for students who wants to participate in these programs, like citizenship restrictions or something like that. I don't know.
Yes, that's dependent on our mission partners. So some of the problems that we have working on, that we have available, our mission partners don't want to work with students that are non-US citizens. Otherwise, it's pretty open. It's going to depend again on the sensitivity of that project.
Hi, Andy. I have another question. First of all, nice presentation. So I was wondering, you were talking about the problem database. Where is that? Like, is there a list where we can just go and look for different problems and maybe ask some of our students to work on a specific problems like that? Can you talk a bit more about that particular process?
Yeah, so that process, I've spoken with Ariane and Jessica about how we can more streamline that process. Our enterprise has just transitioned to Salesforce, and our database for those problems is a little more refined than it used to be. I'm trying to clump them together in terms of the vertical tech areas that the Department of Defense has classified them as. So there's 14 critical tech areas, and we're working on a better methodology internally for how we can organize those to get them in front of the right departments in the school, so that I'm not just sending you a blast list of 700 and some. Once I come up with that process, I'm going to depend on Jessica and Ariane to distribute them to the appropriate entities. Because essentially what's going to happen, once you and I would develop a direct relationship, then I'll work directly with you to ensure that you have the problem that you want. I'll make the direct connection between you and the mission provider. And then once that connection is made, the students and the mission provider or the mission partner are off to the races to finish the project. So it's going to depend on how we get that problem set out. Feel free to email me and tell me the problems that you're interested in, and I can start to filter them out and direct those problems directly to you. And then we can initiate what that relationship looks like.
Thank you. That sounds good.
Okay.
Do you have any comments on the expectations for each one of these projects, or actually that depends on the talking with each one of the partners?
Yeah, so the expectations is, now I'll try to paint some picture here. When I was in the military, had I known an organization like this existed, and I would have been so excited that this was a resource available to me. Within the military context, you're given your mission set and you're given the tools and resources that are organic to your unit. So when we talk to some of these mission partners, they're just excited that somebody else is willing to take on a problem at no cost to them. So there's really not a whole lot of expected end state. That is determined by the mission partner and what the students can come up with at the end of the course. So it's usually pretty open-ended. there's not any specific contractual expectation. Usually I'll develop a memorandum of understanding that will delineate specific left and right limits to say, here's problem X, and we're going to start working towards solution Y. But there's nobody contractually obligating you to provide that at the end of the day. The name of the game is innovation. So if we can pick up the ball and move it a little bit further down the field, then that's winning. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. That clarifies a lot because, for instance, in the capstone section, there is time constraints in terms of a capstone may last for 1 semester, 2 semester, etc. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll speak to the time frame briefly. Some of our capstones are 1 semester, some of them expand 3 semesters. We have 3 ongoing at Marshall right now, 1 ongoing at West Virginia University within the biomedical engineering. And then I've got 3 mechanical engineering problems placed at the University of Pittsburgh. Each of these are completely different problem sets. They're all moving on their own time frame. And the end state is not well defined. I'll use the one at WVU, for example. We're in the 2nd semester right now, and the students went from this concept that was basically like, hey, we need to figure out how to use human interface devices to help command and control. And how do we do that? So the students worked with the mission partner and came up with this idea that they're going to use a hand gesture device to help communication on the battlefield. So they purchased a glove, and that glove is now being used to kind of figure out how to send hand and arm signals for communication on the battlefield. That was done in conjunction with interviews from military partners, the mission partner themselves, and also doing some review with what's available out in the ecosystem right now. That actually brings up a point that I forgot to mention. Our capstone project does come with funding. There's $2,500 per calendar year that's attached to each capstone project. As long as we get on the front end of it and it becomes something that's briefed up, then we're able to go ahead and secure funding to help the students process this. So they can use that money. It's not a blank check for $2,500. If we can justify that it's to help the capstone move forward, then we'll go ahead and bless off on the funding for whatever the project is.
And I'm sorry.
Sorry, Prashna, if you want to go.
No, I was just trying to ask a follow-up question on what you just asked. So I was wondering, these capstones are not specific to undergrad or grad, right? It depends, I guess, on the problem scope and how prepared either the undergrad student is versus the graduate, and based on that, we make that decision. Is that correct to assume such things like that?
So I would say here, I'm the middleman. I'm trying to keep the mission partner and the academic partner happy. If you want to place the problem with your undergraduate program or your graduate program or your PhD granting program, I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, if the mission partner is getting a solution to their problem set, the level that comes from doesn't really matter to me.
And sorry to interrupt again.
No.
This is interesting and I'm curious. So does the solution always needs to be some sort of a product, or are there any problems that requires like open-endedness approach, and hence maybe the end result would be a research that can be shared among the communities, or is most of the time the problems require a specific solution?
That's going to depend on the problem set. Some of them, for instance, the policy one that I read off to you, that's probably a more open-ended solution. Someone has identified a need and no one has tackled that need. So it just depends on the problem statement. Some of them will be very open-ended. Some of them will be specific. Like one of the problems that we have at the University of Pittsburgh is they want to figure out a way to make generators quiet. Does that mean you develop a new generator? Does that mean you develop some type of noise dampening system that gets attached to that generator? So the way that you decide to solve that problem is 100% up to you. And the way the solutions are vetted with the mission partner, as long as they bless off on it, continue to move forward with it.
Thank you so much, Andy. That answers all my questions also. I had the same answer, the same question. Thank you.
Excellent. Anyone else? Well, like I said, sounds like that's it for the questions. One, the primary way that I'm communicating a lot of the innovation open solicitations is through my newsletter. So I'm using everything that's not just through the Defense Innovation Unit and National Security Innovation Network. The federal government has a lot of open solicitations from a lot of different agencies. That includes SBIRs, that's the Small Business Innovation Research Grants. A lot of those are really difficult to figure out what's going on. So my newsletter is intended to basically filter through all of the government nonsense and communicate it in a way that the people who are interested in finding the problems can find the problems. So if you follow that newsletter, you're going to see a lot going on. I'm also sharing innovation events. So there's a lot of different events going on around the country. For instance, hackathons that are going on. I'll put that out there. My goal is to put out there as much as I possibly can so that you in the academic industry are able to find the opportunities that are available to you. Honestly, it's just a matter of communication. So I'm trying to streamline that communication. Specifically, thank you for the great questions, Prajin and Ignacio. If anybody has a desire to sponsor a capstone problem, please feel free to reach out to me directly. We'll figure out how to work with you and to get the right problem put with you and your team. At the end of the day, we're trying our best to just put the right problem in front of the right problem solver. I spent 14 years on the front lines, and if we can figure out how to win the next war before it kicks off, otherwise we're going to learn the hard lessons through attrition. I, for one, don't want to see us have to do that. So you guys can be part of the solution before we have to figure out the hard things. So thank you all for your attention. And again, feel free to reach out should you have any questions.
Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Andy, for the presentation.
All right, have a great day.